What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. We have a very, very special guest, TOJ family, Mr. D.A. Osorio. What's up, D.A.? How you doing? Great to have you here.
No, man. Thank you guys for having me on. I was telling Joe earlier as we were, kind of gearing up to prep for the upcoming year, right? That if you had told me 9 years ago when I first joined TOJ that we would have a live show and that it would be hosted by two kick-ass dudes, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would not have believed it. I'd be like, yo, no way. There's just no way. So I'm super psyched to join you guys. I'm super psyched to rock with you guys. And this is going to be fun. We're going to talk about a lot of good stuff. So I'm ready.
Yeah, thanks, D.A. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's great. It's we're extremely happy to have you on. But like you say, man, it's even from when I started following Joe on Twitter at that point, just to see what it's grown into, it's amazing. So we're extremely happy to do this, and we'll get kicked off here. So Dalbin, let me ask you. First thing I'd like to start with is Nate Burrelson on Good Morning Football said the Jets should expect to get double-digit wins this year. So let's kick it off with that. What are your thoughts there?
So everybody at TOJ will tell you that I'm the resident optimist, right? But even I think double-digit wins is a bit of a stretch. I think that every year for the last 5 years, we've seen a team go from last place to first place every year, right? And I think that this year will be no different, but I don't think that's us necessarily. However, folks got to remember, like, this is the first year of Robert Saleh, right? First year in a new scheme with a rookie quarterback. Right, an offensive line that has a new right tackle, has a new left guard, potentially a new right guard. So you're talking about 60% of the O line may be new. You have 3 new receivers that are expected to get at least 40, 50, 60 targets each, right? And Corey Davis and Elijah Moore and Keelan Cole. And then you have a secondary that's not very good, right? It's a secondary that is unproven. They're young. You may not have Marcus May, right? He may get shipped out midway through the year. So I think that this is a team that's going to be competitive. I do not think that this is going to be a team that gets the brakes beaten off of them every week. But you're talking about 10 wins in an AFC that you have Cleveland, right, who was really, really good last year. Baltimore, who's had a pretty good offseason and is really, really good this year. Buffalo's still the prohibitive favorite in that division. Miami will probably take a step back, but Miami still on paper is a little bit better than us right now, right? And then you have the Chargers with Herbert. You still have Kansas City, Denver if they trade for Rodgers. It's a really tough conference to really break through that first year, but I think the Jets are going to be competitive in every game. I do not think they're going to get blown out. So I get what Nate Burrelson is saying, and I cannot wait for the LOL Jets narrative to die, right? I cannot wait for that to die. But I think we're a year away from that dying fully. But I think we're on the road, man.
Steven?
Yeah, he brought up a lot of good points. I mean, he's definitely, I would say, like he mentioned, definitely the optimistic guy in the room for TOJ. I tend to be more in the middle, but I also think a little bit of a stretch. And I think where his point is to not have low expectations and not set a low standard for the football team, which I totally get that. And I think that's the way you got to approach it. I mean, every team going into every season, no matter how bad the roster is, like, let's look at the Texans. Their expectation is they think they can win the Super Bowl. So you don't want to have that loser's mentality that we had with Adam Gase. So I get where this is coming from, but I think 10 wins is definitely a stretch. I mean, like Dalbin said, the secondary is terrible. I just don't really see how we're going to stop quarterbacks. I mean, look, if we get a pass rush, maybe I'm wrong. And I'm expecting us to have a pass rush, but to what level that pass rush is, I don't know yet. And we need to see how this system really works out. Offensively, rookie quarterback, you have no idea what you're going to get. I mean, the assumption is, we think that it's going to be a much better offense. I'm confident to say that the offense will score more points than it did last year. We'll have 300-yard passing days. We'll probably have 100-yard rushers and stuff like that. I don't know how often, but it's going to happen. I just think, the scheme is more designed to the modern NFL. The players and personnel are much better. The offensive line, which has been really the Achilles heel of the team for the last 2 years, is significantly better. The only really question we have right now is right guard with Van Roten. But maybe Cam Clark wins the job, and maybe he's an upgrade. We don't know yet. But, I think, what we've been talking about on the show, and I know Connor and Joe have been talking about this specifically today, the 6.5, over under, I think is really where they net out. I think anywhere between 5 and 8 is realistic. And I kind of expect that. And I think anything under 5 is a disappointment. I know we can look at 4 wins and we double our win total last year, but I don't want to have those types of expectations. I think that we could be better. And I think Saleh is going to instill this culture and this mentality, like Dalvin said. And, we're going to be a tough team to play. Even if we don't win, teams aren't going to just win 30-0 and the game be over in the second quarter. Like they may win in the last second at field goal and be really lucky to get them at MetLife Stadium. So I'm excited. I think 10 wins is definitely a lot to ask of a new team, especially with a rookie coach, a rookie quarterback, and then rookie offensive and defensive coordinators. So Brant Poyer is the only coordinator who actually has experience being coordinator. So you got to take that for what it is. Steven, lay it on us.
Well, and before you go to Russo, I will say this. I think too, like what you have to factor in, right, is that again, you don't want to be mathematically eliminated by Halloween, right? Draft season returns in October, and what I've told James and Meegs and Joe is that I do not want to be talking about anything like, oh, we're picking third, and we're in the KV Thibodeau sweepstakes or whatever. Right. Or Derek Stingley, who was a beast, right? I don't want to have to be having those conversations by Halloween, right? And Russo, we've talked about this before, right? Like our wives keep us sane, right? My wife does not want to see me upset by Halloween. Like let's get through Thanksgiving, right? If it happens in December, it's fine because Christmas will brighten me up. But I do not want to be miserable by Halloween, man. And I think that's what we're talking about. Like you're going to see a team that's going to compete every down. That's not going to give away plays. You're going to have mistakes, of course. It's a young team, but it's going to be a team that competes.
Definitely.
So yeah, I agree. So Dalbin, you as the resident TOJ optimist, I can definitely agree with that because I feed off that optimism and I like it.
You're optimistic too. I would agree.
Yes, I'm there.
I feed off of that too, though. I will tell you that because like there were times last year, and this, man, in our Slack chat, whenever something would go wrong, it'd be like, "Oh my God, the sky is falling," and I'm like, "Listen, man, like and you know what? Maybe it's because of our nature that we've been Jet fans for so long. We know when the sky is falling. Last year was not that."
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's like the opposite of knowing what a franchise quarterback is.
Yes.
We know when it's bad,
but
we don't know when it's good.
Right.
Sorry, Steven. We got to let you go.
No, that's okay. So I think we can all understand the point that Nate Burrelson was trying to make is that this team should expect to get the double-digit wins. No one should be going into the season and say, "Hey, listen, we just want to be competitive. If we get to 6 or 7 wins, that's fine." What I do think, though, is I can honestly see a realistic path where this team can get to 10 wins. Is it going to be easy? No. Do they have to have a lot of rolls of their dice go their way? Yes. But if you take a step back and you actually look on the first episode we ever hosted here, when we ran through with the schedule release, it's a last place schedule, and the list of quarterbacks they play are not daunting. So if you also look at this with the rest of the division, Pats are still nothing to write home about. The Dolphins could very easily take a step back, and same with the Bills. I'm not saying the Bills are going to regress back to a 9-8 team, but to be 13-3 or 13-4 again, that's going to be hard to do. So when you couple that with the improvements that the Jets have honestly made across the board, I could see a path to where they get hot, they take advantage of a softer schedule, they maybe make it to 9 or 10 wins, and they're looking at at the 7th seed. It's never been easier to make the playoffs now than it is going to be in 2021. So those are things that go in their favor. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying that I could see a scenario where it does. So if you talk about the improvements, let's talk about Vera Tucker over the guard play last season. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Corey Davis over Rashad Perryman. Let's talk about the addition of Elijah Moore in there. I think we can honestly say, as realistic as we want to be, that Zach Wilson is going to be an upgrade over Sam Darnold. And then you take in the coaching staff and what that means. So, I mean, even as bad as the Jets were last year, 2-14, they were still a stone's throw away from 5-11. So even if the Jets are hovering around that 6 or 7 mark, like we think now, well, maybe a couple of things go their way, a couple, things fall in place for them, they get to 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Do I expect it? I'm probably in that, 7 and 9 range, but I could definitely see a path where, things fall in their favor and it could be a double-digit win team.
Steven,
I think you're right. I mean, every year we see either somebody gets hurt, right? Every year. A team that you expect to take a step forward doesn't, right? Like who would have told you 7 months ago that the Texans would be where they were, right? Where they are right now, right? Like they were talking about competing with Deshaun Watson, not wasting his prime, and now look like they're talking about, listen, man, we're gonna be picking first overall, right? You look around the AFC, you look at a team like the Colts, right? They're banking on Carson Wentz being the good Carson Wentz, not the bad Carson Wentz that we've seen last year. I do agree with you, Steven. I do agree with you that I think Zach Wilson wins Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to play that well. And I think clear as day he's going to be an upgrade over Sam Darnold. Clear as day. Because I think a lot of folks, because Sam Darnold's a nice guy, don't realize just how bad he was last year. Like he was not a good quarterback at all. He was the worst quarterback in the league last year. And we get to play him week 1, right? Fresh out the gate behind a bad offensive line, right? That Carl Lawson and Quentin Williams and Vinny Curry and Sheldon Rankin should feast off of, right? So I agree with you. I think that if you get to December, right? If you get to December, final 5 weeks, and you are, you have 6 wins at that point. 8 wins is realistic there, right? And that's a huge stepping stone. I said this earlier because Joe was having some fun with some Fitzpatrick fans. I know we'll talk about them later, but there's a difference in going 8-9 with a rookie quarterback and going 8-9 with a journeyman like a Fitzpatrick or a quarterback you're not sold on like a Sam Darnold. If the Jets go 8-9 with Zach Wilson, now you're set up to where maybe you don't make the playoffs because of the tiebreakers or whatever the case may be, right? But then next year, right, with all the picks you got and all the cap space, you now have something to build on, and now you're the team that takes that next step. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be a fun year, though. That's what I will say. And I say that to Jets fans all the time. I think it's going to be a fun year. I do not think it's going to be a year where you're drunk by 1:30 in the afternoon on Sunday.
Absolutely. And you know what? The other thing is, you talk about improvements. I mentioned the ones that on the excuse me, on the offensive side of the ball. But if you look on the defense, they've definitely strengthened the defensive line. And as bad as we make fun of or poke fun at the secondary, it's still an improvement from last year. And, the addition of LaMarcus Joyner, Bryce Hall with another year under his belt, hopefully Bless also can, finally take a step. Those are improvements in a solid defense. So I think, the writing is there for this to actually happen. It's going to take a lot of things going in their favor to make it happen, but I still think there's definitely a possibility where it could, whereas last year was a lost cause after, the second quarter in Buffalo.
And the biggest thing I think defensively is you get CJ Mosley back, right? Like folks forget that CJ Mosley was at worst when we signed him the 3rd best inside linebacker in football. At worst, right? And he was the best player on the field versus Buffalo before
we were talking about this on TV the other day.
like he was the guy, right? And so now you get him back, a year of rest, his body not getting beaten up, right? In a system that caters to linebackers, in a system that lets linebackers just play freely, and behind a front 4 that is just absolutely you're talking about from Lawson to Curry to Rankins to Q. That is by far. I can't think of a scarier front 4, not in the AFC East. I think by far the Jets have the best front 4 in the AFC East. And I would have to sit here and actually look to see Denver still has,
Pittsburgh's the one.
And Pittsburgh's the one. Pittsburgh would be the one. But other than that, if you remove Pittsburgh, who else are you making the argument for?
Cleveland, maybe. Cleveland too.
With Myles Garrett, right? And so, but you're talking about a year ago, you couldn't say that. A year ago, there's no way that you could have said the Jets have a top 5 defensive line unit in the league, right? And Steven, you said this in episode 2. The best cure for a poor secondary is the pass rush, is the guys that can get to the quarterbacks, right? So if we have guys that are constantly causing pressures, right, then those errant throws that Sam Darnold is known to throw up, or that Drew Lock will throw up, or that Cam Newton he showed last year, no arm strength, was throwing them up too, right? And those are the balls that are thrown up, and then suddenly Marcus May's picking them off. LaMarcus Joyner, who you mentioned, Steven, again, LaMarcus Joyner is much better at free safety than he was in slot corner where the Raiders played him. So now you're playing him in his natural position, and you get Ashton Davis, who, again, another year under his belt. The safeties, I think, are intriguing because they can cover up for a lot of these issues that you're going to see with the corners, because, again, they're going to struggle. Cornerback is by far, in my opinion, the toughest position aside from quarterback to transition to from college to the pros. The toughest position. But you're going to see some struggles.
Yeah. No, so I just wanted to get 2 more points across, I think, to kind of echo some of Steven's points, so we can transition topics. So another thing when you talk about Buffalo with regression, one of the things about Buffalo, I still think they're going to win the division, no doubt, but they had an amazing injury luck. They basically had 2015 Jets injury luck. Who was hurt on their team? And that's why they went 13-3. I still think they're going to win double-digit games and win the division pretty easily. I think Miami may challenge them. I don't think New England will. And the other thing that works out in the Jets' favor is all the guys that were drafted last year, they're going to have they had a real offseason program and they're going to have a real training camp. That matters. Like Denzel Mims, literally, the first time he got NFL action was week 8 of the season when he actually practiced and played. He had no training camp. He didn't have a real offseason. So I think those things are things you got to think about, if you're going to be a little more optimistic. So we went a lot on this, and I love it. But I want to transition to something that, a lot of Jet fans, specifically on Jets Twitter, are a little bit concerned about. It's the unsigned rookies of Elijah Moore. I was about to say Vera Tucker and Zach Wilson. Thankfully, AVT signed this week. I've been on the record to say I think that the other rookies will be signed by the end of the weekend. Obviously, what do I know? I'm not talking in the building. It's just I think that it'll be all done and taken care of, just like Darnold was right before practice. So they're there, and there's no issues with this. Dalvin, what do you think about this?
So I think it's a testament to what Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh have done that Jets Twitter is not freaking out about this. Right? That's unexpected. That's not something that I'm used to. I'm used to them freaking out over everything. But I think that there's always conversations whenever these negotiations are happening about offset language and things like that. This is not abnormal. It's not abnormal. And I also think that I would be worried if Zach Wilson missed like a week.
Yes,
right? I would be worried.
Very worried.
Like a week. Because I think, one, then you got to have the conversation of like, well, how much are we going to put on your plate when we play that first preseason game? And, Steven, to your point, because you make a really good one, Denzel Mims didn't have an offseason. Mekhi Becton got to stay in Louisiana and eat, his mom's soul food cooking, which, again, the restaurant, I've heard the food is delicious, right? But again, that's all he did, right? So this year, he's also had a good offseason, right? Like in terms of just, you've seen Duke Mayweather sharing the videos. He is just absolutely getting jacked, right? So
he looks great.
He looks great, right? But with the rookies, Zach Wilson was there for a voluntary camp. So was Elijah Moore. They were able to get their playbooks. They were able to spend a lot of time together, right? Spending a lot of time at Islander games, which was great, right? Which is great for camaraderie. So I'm not overly worried. I'd be worried if it bleeds into like, if we're talking about July 31st, they haven't shown up yet or something like that, right? Because you're talking about 8 days at that point. But with Zach Wilson, I want him to get all the reps that he can. Because I want him to be ready. But I also think here's the kicker, though. I think Zach Wilson's going to be better prepared to start week one because he's going to get to go up against Robert Saleh's defense every day. And the more reps he gets against Robert Saleh's defense, the more I'm like, you know what? Matt Rule's defense, you're not going to do anything to him. You're not going to scare him.
Baylor defense.
Yeah. You're not going to. It's a sieve, right? Like it's literally you opening faucets and stuff. So I'm not overly worried. But if we get to July 31st and they're not signed, I think we will. But I agree with you. I think they'll be signed by tomorrow, and then they'll be there on the 23rd. I think they'll be signed by tomorrow. I'm not overly worried. It's always the offset language. It's always that. We saw it with Arnold. We saw it with Baker, right? We saw it with a lot of the quarterbacks. It's always that.
Yeah. Zach's getting a fully guaranteed contract. It's not about the money. He's getting about $30 million coming his way, probably 15 of which is up front. So I agree. I think it'll be done by the end of the weekend before the vets come in. Steven, what do you think? Any concerns? You feel okay about it?
I'm fully panicked right now because, obviously Sam Darnold is in Carolina because he missed those first 4 days of camp back in 2018. No, we don't panic until it's time to panic. I think, what mildly concerns me is that it's Wilson and Moore who are going to be two integral parts of the offense. In a new offense, ton of new players, new coaching staff, all that. But no, I'm not. This stuff will work itself out. These contracts are slotted. If there's little minute details that'll come in, and usually it's the teams that kind of always have this problem. I know the Jets obviously been mentioned before with, they had this issue with Sam Darnold. You see the Chargers all the time with offset language. This stuff will work itself out. Like DA said, if it gets to, later next week, some point, then we'll start to hit the panic button a little bit. But at this point, no, it'll get done.
Yeah, it's, it is what it is. It's their first contract. They're trying to be careful with all the language. And I've heard Wilson has a pretty tough agent. I forgot which guy it is. So, he wants to make sure that his client's getting the best deal. Sure. Do you blame him? No, because his job's on the line if he messes something up with the contracts. I get why the agent's playing hardball, but it's not about money. It's just about, like you said, offset language. So I said, I think this gets done. I think it'll be done before the actual vets show up to camp. Zach's at camp, so it's not like, he's just not showing up. It's like he wants to practice. He wants to be ready. He wants to live his dream of being in the NFL. I don't think that this is going to linger. He's not
in a club getting mono, guys. Like he's not doing that. So we've already on the last quarterback.
He's not allowed to go to bounce.
Not allowed to go to bounce. That is off limits. That is off limits.
Poor Sam, man. Body's not even cold yet, and we're making fun of him so much.
Throwing dirt already.
So listen, let's transition a little bit. Excuse me. So DA, if I were to ask you, especially with camp right around the corner, if there's one under the radar player that you say is primed for a big year in green, what would you say? Who would you say?
Chris Herndon, man. Chris Herndon.
The Hive.
Chris Herndon. And you know what? Like I have learned over the entire time that I've been doing this. So I'll tell you this. So when I first joined TOJ, I remember it was like maybe my second draft or whatever, and I had Laquan Treadwell as like my number one receiver, right? Like I love Laquan. I thought he was a beast, right? And then it has not panned out at all, right? It's not panned out at all. But there was something about like the way that folks would be so quick to give up on some of these young guys. Right. Like after a year, they're like, oh, no, that's it. It's over. Right. And with Laquan, it did turn out like it was over. But I've seen that with guys like Curtis Samuel, right, who maybe struggle a little bit out of the gate and then they start to find their niche. Right. You saw it with Corey Davis for a long time. Right. And I said this to Connor earlier. The Corey Davis signing in particular feels like when the Giants stole Plax from Pittsburgh. Right. And Plax he hadn't really gone over 1,000. He had been like a 60 catch guy. And then suddenly he exploded into this number one receiver, right? And probably extended Eli's career a little bit, right? Like he probably did that. I think signing Corey Davis is one of those kind of moves, right? I think Chris Herndon's a guy that there are not many good tight ends in this league. This is not a tight end friendly league. You know, Zantz and I talk about basketball all the time, right? The NBA is not a big man league right now, right? The NFL is, you have the top tier tight ends, right? And then a bunch of guys that are kind of just interchangeable, right? It's just a bunch of guys that are. I think Herndon has the potential to be one of the better tight ends in this league. I think and this doesn't get talked about enough, right? These kids, because they're still kids, played in the middle of a pandemic, away from their family, couldn't see their families, all that stuff. He looked absolutely disinterested for the first like 12 weeks of the year, just absolutely out of it. The last month, right, dropping balls, lack of focus, all of that. The last month, he looked like the Chris Herndon from his rookie year, right? And so I think one, with better receivers around him, with a better O-line protecting his quarterback, and he's going to be the one that gets the favorable matchups because nobody's going to expect him to ball, right? Yeah, he doesn't have anybody behind him. They signed Tyler Kroft, which, again, I think every team needs a designated white tight end, and Tyler Kroft fits that role, but he's not the guy that's going to take the snaps from Chris Herndon. He's not going to be that guy, right? And then you have, Angels and Demons, Dan Brown. He's not going to do it either, right? So I think it's Herndon, and I think him and Zach are going to develop a really nice rapport because he's going to be open a lot. Because if you single up with Corey Davis, say Corey Davis is the guy you single up on. Okay. Corey Davis runs well enough routes that he can beat one-on-one coverage. Okay, so you're going to single up on Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore will beat you one-on-one coverage, right? So at some point you're going to see defensive coordinators start to roll coverage to some of these guys, right? You're going to have Mims singled up on the outside, which I think is a mistake, right? Because Mims is the bigger receiver, right? And he can win those jump balls that Zach will throw. But Herndon's the guy in the middle of the field that if Zach gets time, Herndon's going to get those opportunities, right? And so and in this offense, we've talked about this offense as what it does for running backs, right? Let's talk about what it does for tight ends too, right? George Kittle is if he's not the best tight end in football, he's the second best tight end in football, right? But George Kittle was a guy that was taken in the 5th round, and they were like, oh, he might just be a really good blocker, right? And then the Niners said, you know what? We're going to unleash him in the slot. We're going to line him up out wide. We're going to try to get him the ball as much as we can. I think we see a little bit of that with Chris Herndon, and I think they signed Kroft to be the primary blocker because while Herndon is a good blocker, Kroft is a better blocker, and you want to be able to go to like these tight end sets where you're running out of them, right? Maybe you put Herndon in the slot and Kroft at the inline tight end, so you're running out of those formations. But it's Herndon, man. If I had to put money today, they asked Joe and Connor on Badlands. They were like, if you could put your career on, who's the guy that's going to blow up? If I had to put my social work career on the line, it would be for Chris Herndon, guys. It would be for Chris Herndon. I think Chris Herndon is going to have a really good year. I think that him and Zach are just going to gel right away, and he's going to be the guy. I think he's motivated, man. And if you notice, the Jets improved every position at the offense except tight end. Tight end was the one that they did not. They added Kenny Yoba, who I love, who I really, really like. But I also think it's really hard for a UDFA tight end to come in and contribute. So I think it's Herndon. Herndon would be the guy. What about you guys? Because I know Zantz, you've talked a lot, and we're all buying stock in Michael Carter. We're all buying stock in Michael Carter. But you've also said, I think you said this, you and Russo both said this a couple weeks ago, that Denzel Mims feels like the guy that's kind of forgotten a little bit, right? Like we talk about all these receivers, but Mims is the guy. I think. So is that who, if you had to stake your luxurious career on, is Mims the guy that you would bank it on?
So I'm going to be a little more tempered with my expectations. I'm not going to bet my career on this, but I think it's someone people are sleeping on, but it's not Mims. Okay. I mean, I feel good about him, but I don't think people are sleeping on him. I think there's expectations for him to do something, because he has the talent. He showed some flashes. I actually think it's Tevin Coleman, and I'll tell you why. So a couple weeks back, myself, Joe, Will did Twitter Spaces, and we actually got DJ from the Daily News to come on. And he basically was saying, Tevin Coleman's looked really good. He's looked really explosive, and don't sleep on him. And you know what? I kind of see a path for him to really lead the team in rushing, unless, he gets hurt or whatever. Michael Carter is really just that good, which I do expect him to be very good. But at the end of the day, when it comes to this, coaches trust veterans. Adam Gase literally lived with Frank Gore forever. And I think that a first-time offensive coordinator is going to be like, I know Tevin Coleman. He's ran my offense before, whereas Ty Johnson, Josh Adams, P. Ryan, they don't know anything about this offense. It's the first time they're in it. So I see a scenario where, we're in September, we're in Carolina. The first carry of the season goes to Tevin Coleman. And, he gets maybe like 12 to 13 carries, and then Carter's going to get some, and then the other guys will get split. So I think he just has the talent. He was part of that really good Falcons team that unfortunately blew a 28-3 lead. Sorry to any Falcon fans who are watching, but I always have thought he has that, big play potential. He's like a home run hitter. He can catch, which is important in this NFL, especially with a rookie quarterback when he's in trouble and he's just dumped the ball off. I think that Coleman is really going to surprise some people. I know the biggest issue with him has been health. So obviously if he's not available, this is not a good point. But I think, he was hurt last year. I'm sure he's really trying to prove something. He basically took a minimum contract for a veteran. And he's only, I think, 28. So he still has some juice left. Not everyone's Adrian Peterson, who could run till they're like 37. He still wants to keep playing, which is insane. I mean, he's a legend and a freak. But I think Tevin's going to surprise people. I think he's going to be productive. I think he's going to maybe warrant either the Jets giving him maybe a 2-year contract, or another team in free agency giving him a contract. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm not going to bet my career on it, but I think people are sleeping on him a little bit, and I think we should take a little more notice of him. That's all I'm saying. What do you think, Russo?
I think both good points by you guys. Honestly, I like both of them. Dalbin, stake firmly planted in the Herndon hive. I like it.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's. Let me go back to your point though on the one position that they didn't really look to upgrade in that's a very good point, and one honestly I hadn't thought of.
I agree with that.
Now. So obviously, Joe Douglas and his coaching staff see something in Herndon that they like, where they chose not to go out and get someone or draft a tight end or whatever. But honestly, I'm going to go on the other side of the ball. I'm going to say Ashton Davis. I really think that a lot of people kind of overlook his rookie year. Not that he lit the world on fire, but we look at that one time where he got burnt by Tyreek Hill. It's like everybody and their mother gets burnt by Tyreek Hill. So let's not.
That's normal. That's like a day. This is a day in the office for everybody.
Exactly. But here's the reason why I think it's Ashton Davis. I think you look at his career at Cal. He walked on. He learned the game of football. Obviously, his rookie year on a 2-14 team is going to be a learning experience for him. But when you look at, and the guy I brought up earlier, LaMarcus Joyner, I think he's going to solidify that safety spot across from Marcus May. I think Ashton Davis has a chance to be like a Swiss Army knife in the solid defense. When you look at a weak corner group, Ashton Davis has the ability. He played some nickel in college. I think he's got the versatility. I think with a year under his belt, man, he could do some really good things in his defense. So I see a pretty big year out of Ashton Davis, and I don't know if a lot of people are talking about him right now.
And I love Ashton, right? I had Ashton in my top 32 for the draft. He essentially played the Jamal. Yeah, he essentially played the Jamal Adams rookie year role, right? Like he was around the line. And again, I agree with you, right? Like listen, man, I don't think there's any cornerback in this league that can keep up with Tyreek Hill, in a foot. I just do not think that it's possible. And you put a freak athlete like Ashton Davis, who again, he's an athlete, right? But you also put him singled up, literally just him and Tyreek Hill, with Tyreek Hill running a straight line as Pat Mahomes was throwing him the ball. Like that's like if and you guys know I'm a Mavs fan, that's like if I asked Jalen Brunson to guard a Steph Curry, Klay Thompson pick and roll. Like that's what that feels like to me. Like I feel like I can't be mad at the end result.
No Jalen Brunson slander will be allowed here. I think Jalen could defend. Let's chill with that. But I know what you mean.
It's just not a good look. It's just not a good look at all. But I think I love your point about Tevin Coleman, because I think him as the spell back in Atlanta for Freeman, I thought he played really well in that role. I love the mention of Ashton Davis, though, because I think you're going to see the Jets. Then there's a lot of talk about like what kind of defense you're going to see them run, right? I think you're going to see a lot of like 4-2-5 looks, right? Maybe 4-1-6 looks, right? Where you're essentially putting CJ Mosley as the middle linebacker, the only linebacker on the field, right? And you're trusting Mosley and this front four to get to the quarterback, right? And then you're gonna blanket, with zone coverage, right? So now Ashton Davis is essentially covering that nickel area, right? Then you're using May and Joyner to cover the two deep zones, right? And then you're trusting that your young guys, because here's the thing: no cornerback in this league right now can hold any receiver for more than 4 seconds. That's all you get, right? Because again, quarterbacks are getting the ball out quicker, right? The way that
you can't touch
him, right? The way the league is called, you can't touch him anymore, right? So you're just asking Bryce Hall, and I think they'll sign Brodney Poole before camp breaks. I think Brodney Poole will be back. Right,
Brian Poole.
Yeah. So I think Brian Poole will be back, not Brodney, because Brodney's a throwback. I think Poole will be back, and then it's whoever comes out of the other cornerback spot, right? Whether it's Knock or Nichols or the other Michael Carter or whatever. But all you're asking them to do is hold up enough for Q and Carl and Sheldon and Curry and John Franklin Myers to get to these quarterbacks. That's all you're asking, right? And it's not even about sacks so much as it's how can we disrupt your rhythm, right? Because again, a lot of these quarterbacks, it's 3-step drops and I'm getting the ball out and I'm trusting my receivers to go make plays, right? Even the Chiefs, they get the ball to Tyreek Hill in space and he's gone, right? Like that's really, you're not catching him at that point, right? So you want to see guys that are able to hold up that long. And Ashton Davis, I think he can do that. Ashton Davis can cover a zone for the life of him, and I think he's athletic enough to move side to side from end to end. So I like that pick, and I'm hoping to cash in my Ashton Davis points this year.
I think Ashton could end up playing like that Swiss Army knife hybrid linebacker safety role, the kind of role that Buda Baker's played and a couple other guys have played in the NFL. So I could see that if they want to put Joyner in the back and then have him kind of rotating, since our linebackers stink. So I'm excited to see that. But Dalvin, the funniest thing is one of the guys who's watching, Victor Rosario, shout out to you. He commented, today would be a great day to sign Brian Poole. So it's kind of funny that we brought him up. I didn't know if you saw that. Thanks, Victor.
It's true. Today's a great day to do that. Because also, I think what you want at least one veteran in that room, man. You want at least one veteran. And Poole's a guy who was pretty good last year, right? He was pretty good last year. And it's so hard to play slot corner in this league. It's so hard to play slot corner in this league because sometimes you're guarding a 6'5" Julio Jones, who the Falcons are sticking in the slot. Now the Titans will do that. So it's so hard to do. And he plays the position really well. And Jason Pinnock, Brandon Nichols, and Michael Carter II, the other Michael Carter. I'm telling you, it is very rare for corners to come in and produce anyway, right? Yeah. It's even harder for guys that are taken in days 2 and 3 to come in and produce anyway, right? So I think you need to get a veteran there, even if it's just to hold down the fort. I know Salah's like, oh, well, I'm worried about the guys that are here. I'm like, yeah, me too, man. I'm very worried about the guys that are here.
Yeah. Is Buster Screen still available?
If you want to bring back Buster, D. Milner, right? Like, come on, let's get crazy.
Hey, fun fact, D. Milner has more career interceptions than Jamal Adams. I just would like to point that out to everyone who is watching and listening to this show. One of the funniest things I saw last week. You know what I love about D. Milner? D. Milner in his rookie year locked up Josh Gordon in the game against the Browns. I mean, absolutely locked him up. He did, I remember.
And everybody was like, "Listen, man, we got the look at Idzik getting us the guy that replaced Reed."
I think it was more of a work ethic problem with him than a talent issue.
I think so too. I think so, and the injuries. And by the time he got to the NFL, Saban had broken his body. By the time he got to the NFL,
that's always been the issue with Alabama players. They're like, have they been maximized because of the way they run their offense and defense? Guys, I want to transition to something that's a little more of like a nuisance to us as Jet fans, a former quarterback, with a big beard who found some ways to choke some gains away for us, decided to, bash the team, which, you know what, honestly, I felt was a little unfair. They ended up giving him a nice contract after that great season. And he basically was saying, Fitz, that in 2016, he was so low. He never felt so low in his career playing for the Jets. And, he basically was so miserable and wanted to quit football. And I'm thinking to myself, as a Jets fan who watched that season and watched him blow the game in Buffalo, that, if we won that game, who knows what could have happened, because the team was actually really talented. But you know what? It's not the team's fault that you threw 6 interceptions against Kansas City. That was one of the games where my eyes literally bled. That was like Luke Falk against the Patriots and Eagles bad. You cannot just say that that made you want to quit. The team wasn't that terrible. Yes, poorly coached, but there were players. I know Decker got injured, but you still had Marshall. You still had Enunwa, who was actually amazing that season. That was literally when we all fell in love with Enunwa. I can't listen to that shit. Excuse my language, but what is wrong with you, Fitz? We paid you, you had you're probably your best season ever with the Jets. Let's chill with that. Guys, what do you think about this?
Go ahead,
I was on the Trap or Dive podcast last week, right? And shout out to Maul and those guys, right? They've essentially launched a NFL podcasting on Twitch, which I think is really, really cool, right? But I'm laughing because last week they were asking me about Ryan Fitzpatrick because one of the guys on it is a Washington football team fan. And so when you told me we were going to talk about Fitzpatrick, I'm like, yo, I can't escape him. Let me tell you, man. I hated Ryan Fitzpatrick from when he stole money from Buffalo, $55 million after Chan Gailey got him to go to Pro Bowl, right? I've hated Fitzpatrick since then. I think Fitzpatrick is a guy who was bad, right? And like he had these spurts, right? Kind of like J.R. Smith, right? Like you had these spurts where you got to think like, oh, there's talent there, right? And you fool yourself into paying him big money. Yep. The Jets backed themselves into a corner. One of Mike McCagnon's many mistakes. Paid Fitzpatrick $12 million, right? Mm-hmm. And then Fitzpatrick felt disrespected that Bowles benched him because he was stinking up the place, right? So like, and in the write-up where he, bashed the Jets or whatever, they write like, oh, he's such a great teammate and always does what's asked of him. No, he's not. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a terrible teammate. He threw his receivers under the bus that year, threw his offensive line under the bus, threw his coach under the bus. And I think then you see him leave and, he goes to Miami, has no interest in backing up Tua, right? He has no interest.
And Tampa too. Tampa.
Right. Well, goes to Tampa. Then he goes to Miami and no interest in backing up Tua. And now he goes to Washington where he's like, oh, this is the best I've ever felt. I've been brought in to be the starter, blah, 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 blah. And it's one of those things where it's like, dude, like, this notion of like being the forgotten man. He makes it sound, what he makes it sound like? He makes it sound like he's Willie Beeman, and the Sharks have just given up on him. And the Sharks have just given up on him. That's what he makes it sound like. I hate Ryan Fitzpatrick, man. I hate him. Him and Adam Gase are by far the two guys
like Adam Gase.
Yeah, but Ryan Fitzpatrick and Adam Gase, because there's like, and you guys know this, right? In other sports, I'm sure there's guys like for me, right?
Oh no, we lost Dalvin. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, he's on a rant too.
He's on a good rant, but
I know it.
This is the first technical difficulty we've had on the show, but
it's all good.
I like where Dalvin is going with this. Yeah. But basically, yeah, I agree with Dalvin. It's just a ridiculous thing, and it's like you can't do that. Oh, Dalvin, we got you back.
Is he back?
We got him back.
Yeah, no, I was agreeing with you. I think it's terrible. I think it's a terrible thing to say. I think it's a terrible thing to position himself as like the martyr of all disrespected players in this league or whatever it is that he's doing. Yeah. And I think that he is a terrible, terrible teammate. He's a terrible quarterback. And I'm blown away that this continues to happen. That he just continues. Like I'm a big Breaking Bad fan, right? When Jesse says he can't keep getting away with it, that's how I feel about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
What a comparison!
That's how I feel. Like I'm like, yo, come on, man, enough is enough.
There's a reason you've been on 10 teams. He's like, every game's a revenge game. Yeah, because you weren't good enough to be on a team for a long time. I hate to break it to you, my friend. Every team has given up on you, and they will continue. Guarantee Taylor Heineke made starts for Washington. I will guarantee that. I'll take it to the bank.
That's a safe bet. I'll jump in here. First, I can't not address that I love Dalbin's Any Given Sunday and Breaking Bad reference in one rant. I think that's amazing.
It was remarkable,
but
I have to say.
Right. So I'm gonna take not take a different approach, but I find myself having a soft spot for Fitz. I tend to forgive him for the last game of 2015 and 2016 because of how fun the whole season of 2015 was. And I felt like he really endeared himself to the Jets, his teammates, and to the Jets fan base. So I kind of felt myself having just a soft spot for him. 2016 definitely didn't go as planned. It made me sour on him, on that team a lot, but I still, the journeyman that he is, I still found myself kind of, secretly rooting for him in other places, besides Miami. But I hope he finds success in Washington. But this is just ridiculous. I can't, come on. You're going to go back to the one instance on the 9 teams that you've been on where you got benched because you were playing like shit. And that's bottom line. You threw 6 interceptions in one game and lost 24-3. And you're going to blame that and make you hate football. Give me a break. It really, I always had a soft spot for Fitz, but this definitely knocked him down a peg in my book.
Yeah. And he literally had a chance to take us to the playoffs. And he blew that game.
Yeah.
I know Bilal was hurt, and we all have like that, revisionist history. If Bilal wasn't hurt, they probably win the game because he was so good that year.
If he doesn't
at the end of the day, he
Yeah.
threw like 2 picks in the red zone, like literally in the back of the end zone that went right into the defensive back's hands. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like, just, you cannot use this. Like, you've played for so many teams. A million teams have given up on you. I'm sure you've had bad experiences because they wouldn't commit to you long term. Like, it's absurd. It's just like another LOL Jets thing. I just think that people always want to find bones to pick with the Jets, especially now because the Browns are good. They need a punching bag. I understand that. I do. But you know what? Make fun of the Texans. They got Jack Easterby running the team, and God knows what that guy's thinking. We don't deserve the same slander now that Gase is gone. I understood when we had Gase, you can make fun of us. We were easy to make fun of. We don't have him anymore. We actually have the anti-Gase, and Joe Douglas is competent. Whether Wilson is good, we don't know yet. But at the end of the day, we have good people running the team right now. So I'm confident in that regard.
Yeah, well, and I think the Jets, like the Knicks and the Mets, have been low-hanging fruit for media, national media and local media for such a long time.
It's easy. Right? It's clicks. It's easy. That's what they do.
It's easy. But you see the Knicks, right? Functional front office, right? They didn't hemorrhage the farm to go get Chris Paul, which is something they probably would have done 10 years ago, right?
5 years ago.
Or even 5 years ago, right? Young nucleus, draft picks, cap space, all that. The Jets are doing the same. And you see the Mets, right? The Mets go and get Francisco Lindor. Any other team goes and get Francisco Lindor. It's talked about like it's this great move. But the Mets did it, and it's like, man, are you really sure? Trade for a guy that's only been good.
I actually disagree with that. I think when that happened, people thought it was a good trade because they didn't really give up a lot, and he's a star player. It hasn't looked good because he hasn't played great now he's hurt. But like, I don't think it was negative received. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But then even look now, right? Like now it's like, oh well, look, maybe you shouldn't have given up Andre Jimenez to the Indians. And it's like Andre Jimenez can't even get off the bench in Cleveland. Like, what are we doing? So I think it's that. I think it's the easy thing to critique the Jets the same way the Mets and the Knicks. What's going to happen though, and what I'm curious to see is because again, the Jets have had a pretty functional offseason, right? Like.
Yes.
Nobody's been caught with guns in their car. Like nobody's gone speeding down the turnpike the wrong way. You know, so I
see who you're throwing shade at, but I won't mention any names. The OGs know. You know,
the OGs know.
So I'm rookie of the year, if you remember.
Exactly. But I'm interested to see what happens now that the Jets are competent. I'm very interested to see what happens.
It's good. I'm excited and like I just felt like Fitz just didn't need to do that. You know, like at the end of the day, if you retire and you want to do that, you're still playing on a team. You know, like teams listen to that stuff. If you're throwing a team under the bus, whether it's warranted or not, that's not the professional move. You just don't do that. You know, if he was 10 years out of the league and he wanted to bash the Jets, so be it. But like you're still playing and you have the best defense in football. So you better show up, man, because they're gonna be tough.
It's gonna be because of him. It's gonna be but I think to your point, if you've played for so many teams, like at some point you keep throwing teams under the bus, you would have thrown every team under the bus.
Yeah, he literally threw them under the bus by throwing 1 million interceptions. That's how he threw them under the bus.
Exactly.
That was some good stuff. I know, you know, there has been a lot going on with the team, but there is something that we wanted to touch on, especially because it's something that's really serious. And we wanted to, you know, give a shout out to Greg Knapp's family. I'm sure most of you who are watching the show do obviously know what happened. But if you don't, you know, he got into an accident while he was biking and he's in serious condition. We just wanted to send our, you know, thoughts and prayers to his family and hope that everything's okay. I know it's pretty serious stuff, but, you know, we just wanted to take a time out there because, you know, this is a Jets show and we think that, you know, someone who is involved with the team when something like this happens should definitely be recognized. And, you know, we obviously hope that he's going to recover strong and, you know, be back at it with the team as soon as he can. So just wanted to say that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, fellas?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, I want to say thank you guys for having me on. This was awesome. Like I said, when I've been at TOJ now actually 10 years, so I joined in 2011.
OG.
Yeah, right. So and it's funny because like Joe and I have this running joke where I say what Joe won't say, right? Like Joe can't say certain things.
Polar opposites, literally.
Yeah. So I say what Joe can't because, you know, and it's been like that for a while. Like I'm incredibly protective of Joe and I'm incredibly protective of what we've built, right? Because you know, when Connor, Cole, and I first started, I was assigned undrafted free agents. Like, that's all I was doing, right? And then Joe one day asked me if I wanted to be on the TOJ pod. And then after that, it was me, him, and Connor doing TOJ pods on Google Hangouts, on Skype, on whatever we could do it on, right? So now to see 10 years later, man, like to have on pace for we have over 750,000 downloads as a group in 49 countries, right? To have a paid podcast that folks pay to listen to, right? Mm-hmm. To have a live show on Wednesdays that again, and I've watched all of your episodes, and I tell you guys this every morning, the morning after. You guys have great chemistry, and you guys are really good people, right? And I'm always rooting for really, really good people. But I'm also rooting for people that can do this, so that way I don't have to do as much with TOJ anymore, right? Because for a long time it was Joe, Connor, and I for a really, really long time. But this is the strongest team that we've had. This is the deepest team that we've had, and very much like the Jets, we're in a good place, right? So honestly, like you guys continue to crush it. Whatever you guys need, you know that I'm here for you guys. But every episode has been great. I thoroughly enjoyed when you guys had DJ on, because I think also, like, I think what I like the most about hearing from you guys is, you know, and you mentioned, like, you guys spoke to him on the spaces, like, he was very real with you guys, right? Yeah. And then what you took what he said on the spaces and then shared it with this audience, right? That maybe missed the spaces, right? Or maybe didn't get a chance to hear from him, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's this synergy that I think works really, really well, right? And I think you guys bring something that has been missing, right, from a lot of the Jets content that we see, right? It's not 2.5 hour film breakdowns. It's not, you know, plagiarized tweets, right? It's not any of that. It's very much like, listen, this happened today. We're going to talk about it today, right? And you guys are bringing a perspective that maybe none of us have had. So you guys have done a really, really great job. I've enjoyed every episode, and honestly, you guys are crushing it. So kudos to making it to 11 episodes, and I look forward to kicking it with you guys when we get to 44, 55, and 66, and all that.
Well, don't worry, you'll be on again.
Right.
But Dalvin, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And he is a man of his word. He does tell us all the time how much he enjoys what we're doing and how well we work together. And we very much appreciate that. Absolutely. And, you know, definitely want to give a shout out to everybody part of the team. You know, we have a lot of guys, you know, we've been adding people since I've joined about a little bit over a year ago. And there's so many people to list. I don't want to write off names, but you all know who you are. And, you know, you guys are like my Jets family. So I'm super excited and really proud to be part of this. And I only think it's going to go up, especially as the season comes. Just wanted to tease, DJ is coming on the show first week of camp, and we'll be linking up with him at the practice on 7:31. So definitely don't want to miss that. Steven, I want to give you some floor here as well.
Dalvin, no, I mean, listen, very kind words, man. Very much appreciated. Yes. We're excited to do this. Excited to have you on, have all the guests on. It's fun. It's good. I'm sure it's going to be therapeutic at some points during the season. And after a big win, it's going to be really fun to be able to get on here and talk about some good stuff. So, you know, you saying that you joined 10 years ago at 2011, that was kind of the beginning of the end for us. So now I think we're all starting to see the tide turn, man. So I hope we can, for you and your sake, we can get to start talking about winning football and a good couple of seasons here strung together. So that Jets positivity, that optimism can really show its face. Yeah. So thanks very much, man. Really, we appreciate all that you do, all the whole team does. It's a super exciting time here in Jets land, as well as really, especially in TOJ. So it's been good, man. Yeah. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and like I said, you guys are genuinely good people, and I love to see good people win. So
I agree. Thank you. I agree with that. That's a good sentiment to have. As always, guys, don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the TOJ pod so you can get our show, you can get Will's show, you can get Dalbin's show when it returns in October. Obviously, as we always mention, what's the most important, make sure you check out Badlands. The Zach Wilson 2-part docuseries is coming out in a few weeks. Obviously, there's the merchandise, which they have as well. And I know Joe and Connor teased a lot of stuff on their show today, if you haven't heard, but they're going to be incorporating a lot of video stuff. It's going to be really fun stuff. And I think that we're only going to take off from here. And don't forget to follow Dalbin on Twitter, DA_Osorio. He's the man. He's got a lot of opinions, and I always get a good chuckle out of his takes, especially when we talk basketball, because we talk basketball a lot for Jet fans.
We do.
Yeah.